Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Ryan Reynolds was on Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. Conan said, we're in a moment where politically there's some tension between Canada and the United States over tariffs. What do you guys send us? What do we send you? And it occurred to me today that we've been getting some of the greatest comedians and comic minds and actors of all times from Canada, and I don't think we've sent you crap. I don't think we've exported much to you in the comedy realm, and I think if somebody were to do a reckoning just comedically and you started to add up the Ryan Reynolds and the Martin Short and the Lorne Michaels and the Mike Myers, it just goes on and on. There's too many to even begin naming. Oh, I can read your mind now, and you're like, oh, I can think of plenty of funny American comedians. I guess the point is we haven't exported the American comedians to Canada? Sarah Silverman, in that Rolling Stone interview, talked about how the reactions to October 7th left her stunned. Sarah said, the alienation of liberal Jews was astounding. Everyone's afraid to say anything. I couldn't even imagine doing stand-up. I was scared. And it was Chelsea Handler who was like, get your ass up. Your job is to make people laugh. That's your job. And I needed that. Boy, I needed it. And then she made me open for her. And honestly, it was a gift because I realized that it's important. Here's this John Mulaney story that I mentioned on Monday that I bounced. I didn't get to it yesterday. Yesterday was pretty packed. The Washington Post has the headline, something about John Mulaney's Netflix talk show isn't working, to which I shared in the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast group, the meme of Bruce Willis from Die Hard going, welcome to the party, pal. Johnny Mac's been saying this all season. Washpo writes, not even Mulaney can muster much interest in some of the subjects he chose or in the experts discussing them. Some, like cruises, feel phoned in, and his obvious anxiety over whether an exchange will pay off sometimes trumps his interest in any particular contribution. He frequently truncates conversations that were just getting going. It doesn't help that there's so much amiable agreement between Mulaney and his guests. Absent some fiddly onstage dynamic he can provoke and stage manage, Mulaney needs something to do, especially when things are too friendly. He turns all that surplus energy and vitriol onto the poor callers. There's a sense that where everybody's in L.A., joyfully invited folks in, everybody's live kicks them out. The eccentricity that makes Mulaney's stand-up so good is precisely what makes it hard for many guests and callers to chime in. His dinosaur bit, for instance, is so genuinely weird that no guest managed to really join him in that headspace. Conan tried hard, so did Tina Fey. When an actual world-class expert, paleontologist Jack Warner, called in and tried to play along, Mulaney, who seemed to not know who he was, hung up on him. Washpo writes, Acerbic John could be fun. It's instructive to watch Mulaney snap judgments in action, as when he hung up on a caller in the Cruises episode because his anecdote sounded too rehearsed. Mulaney said, you've added little tags. It's become a yarn. We don't have time. Cracked asked, did John Mulaney rip off Chris Gethard again? They write, ever since the beginning of Everybody's Live with John Mulaney, fans have accused Mulaney of ripping off the Chris Gethard Show, a cable access comedy talk show that was on Fusion and True TV, on which Mulaney was a multiple-time guest. The latest example was the Blindfold episode last week, in which Mulaney navigated the entire show with a bandana tied around his eyes. The Gethard version was dubbed The Blindfold Show. On The Blindfold Show, Chris told jokes and took viewer phone calls just like Mulaney did. It was such a popular episode that Gethard recommended it to new fans as an entry point to his show's weirdness. It also inspired The Blindfold Show 2. Cracked writes, at this point, it's almost like Mulaney is trolling fans, daring them to find the YouTube clips that inspired this week's episode. Why not at least invite Gethard to guest on one of the panels? Gethard said, he's a very brilliant guy. John Mulaney doesn't need to rip me off in any way. Mateo Lane had a special out on Hulu on Friday. I had forgotten about it because, you know, the Hulu publicists, they don't get back to you. I'm trying to be your friend, Hulu publicist. I would publicize your stuff, but there I was on Hulu, and I was like, oh yeah, Mateo Lane put out a special. I would have mentioned that on my Daily Comedy News podcast. But there was also no press about it. Since then, people caught up with Mateo Lane, who told them, when I'm writing jokes, my brain's back to being a sponge, absorbing everything around me like, oh, that might be a funny idea. That could work. Even when I was 4, I said I wanted to be a famous comedic actor like Jim Carrey. I knew I had something. It was always the feeling of something else is waiting for me. And once I found stand-up, that feeling left me. I thought, this is my goal in life. I'm doing this forever. Kind of felt like a calling. Mateo started in comedy in 2009. He said he didn't truly make it until 2021. That was when I was posting my own stuff online. Networks like Netflix and HBO, the gatekeepers, had an idea of what a gay person was supposed to be. They didn't see the value in gay men just being funny, so I did it on my own. It turns out there was an audience for me. I really enjoyed the challenge because I try to be an optimist, and I think we all have more in common than we think. A lot of the older people are telling us that we don't have something in common, so if someone has a negative idea about a gay person, they see me and they laugh, maybe in the future they'll think of that. I'm not curing cancer, but I think little by little we have to find a common ground, and I think humor is a great way to do that. What's next? I've done enough. I'm taking the summer off. I'll be writing new jokes, but I haven't taken a proper vacation in so long. I'm going to Thailand and Cambodia with friends to see another part of the world. The Al Dente special is on Hulu. Theo Vaughn making the podcast third day in a row. He has opened up about his recent hang with Ivanka and Jared Kushner. Theo shared a photo of them. Ivanka, stunning in a cutout black mini dress. Jared opted for a more casual look with a black t-shirt and white trousers. You can tell I'm sourcing a British paper here. And Theo Vaughn was seen wearing a colorful t-shirt and gray trousers. Theo on X posted, "Y'all's posture is so good, WTH. Are y'all in Spine Club or something? I'm built like a damn raccoon. Thanks for the hospitality. Had a blast." I mentioned yesterday, Kevin Hart is working on a film called 72 Hours, in which he plays a 40-something executive who joins a group of 20-somethings on a 3-day bachelor party. One of those bachelors, Marcelo Hernandez, who does one thing well. Well, if you're in New Jersey, hey, I'm in New Jersey, and you own a luxury car, I do not, you may qualify to become an extra. Grant Wilfleet Casting has put out an open call for Jersey locals who own luxury cars to appear in 72 Hours as, quote, pedestrians. Here are the cars they're looking for. Are you ready? Ferrari, Lamborghini, Maserati, Lotus, Aston Martin, Bentley, Porsche, BMW 7 Series, Mercedes S, SL, CLS, G, an Audi A7 or A8, and a Kia. Hey, guys, I have a Kia. I love my Kia. My Kia's got a big, giant sunroof. It's great. Anyway, if you have a qualifying car and you're interested, you can email 72hours at gwcnyc.com. So 72 hours, one word, at gwcnyc.com. Make your subject line luxury cars. They need to know your full name, whether or not you're a SAG member, your height, weight, clothing, and shoe sizes, whether or not you're local to New Jersey or New York. Are you 18 or older? What's the make, model, year, and color of your car? Current clear photos of yourself, close-up and full body, and a current photo of the car. That's a lot. Semaphore reporting that Bill Maher shut down his podcast company. I'm sure he'll keep doing his podcast, but back in 2024, not too long ago, Bill Maher launched Club Random Studios. Two people familiar with the situation have said the podcast studio has ceased operations. The website that once hosted the network show no longer works. Matt Friend's podcast has not shared a full episode since late last year. Journalist Ricky Schlott, who had announced the show with the network last year, also hasn't shared an episode in months. Club Random Studios did not return a request to comment. The idea was to elevate voices from Bill Maher's extended universe, comedians, musicians, and journalists with heterodox views on issues and shared skepticism of what they perceived as the overreach of liberals and the left. At the time, Bill Maher said, "I want to help this impressive slate of other voices do the same thing on the Club Random Network. Dance like no one's watching. We talk like no one can cancel us." Very interesting. A little more from that Cracked.com interview with Nora Dunn. They were curious how she feels about folks like Dave Chappelle and Donald Trump hosting SNL. Nora said, "With Chappelle, I do think he's very, very smart. But when I saw the special he did, I was turned off completely. You can't endorse that. I was really turned off by that, and I don't think he should have been hired. It's too bad, though, because I always thought he was great, but then he's getting on the bandwagon and picking on people in this country who are only about 2% of the population. Why are you picking on them? What have they done to you? Why do you say you hate them?" Let me jump in there. I don't think Dave says that he hates anyone. He jokes about folks, and we can debate that all day, but I don't think Dave is saying, "I hate these people." Am I forgetful there? Nora says, as for Trump, they hired Trump after he came down that escalator. That's not okay. And of course, that show was terrible. Cracked asked, "Why do you think controversial figures like Trump and Elon Musk and Shane Gillis are asked to be the hosts?" Is Shane really that controversial, guys? I mean, what are we mad about? A bit that Shane did on his podcast before anybody heard of him, before the whole SNL thing? Like, what is controversial about Shane Gillis? He's just a guy with a very charismatic smile who tells goofy jokes and is just having fun. Nora said, "It's the ratings. It's the idea of being cutting edge." Jimmy Fallon told Kelly Clarkson he once stepped in as Don Pardo, who used to do the voices on SNL. If you listen to my podcast, you're probably familiar with Don Pardo. Fallon, who was on SNL from 98 to 04, said he was sick one night, and Lauren said, "Jimmy, can you do Don Pardo?" And I was like, "I think I can. I mean, I'll try." Not exactly sure why that made news, because it is pretty well known that Darrell Hammond often filled in for Don Pardo late in Don's run. And I'm doing this from memory. I think Don worked into his 90s, maybe? Yeah, Don passed away in 2014 at age 96. But Darrell Hammond did it a bunch of times, and that was like a known thing. Anyway, As I have said a lot recently, Fallon is very talented. He's just in the Tonight Show box, and he understands the gig. And sometimes you have to understand the gig. Kreischer was on Jay Shetty's pod. I listened to this driving down to the graduation last week. It was okay. I got bored with it at some point. It's fine. Kreischer talked about his relationship with his father. My dad's a great dad, but he's just like, hey, don't you cry. One Easter, everyone leaves, and it's me and my dad. High as crap, really high. And then I leaned over to him and I said, why don't you like me? And he goes, I love you. You just make me uncomfortable. He was like, I love you, but I'm afraid you're going to die. And I said, well, I'm not going to die. And he goes, you don't know that. I lost my dad when I was young, and I'm terrified to lose you. And I don't understand you. I don't understand your lifestyle. Bert let his father set him up with a cardiologist. All the tests came back fine. Bert says, and I want to say from that day on, our relationship was so much smoother. That's kind of a cool story. Nice job by Nick Kroll, Seth Meyers, Amy Schumer, John Mulaney, and others. They hosted a one-night-only event for Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, mission of ending cancer. 1,000,000 years ago, my father got treatment at Sloan. They did great work. Comedy vs. Cancer is the official comedy benefit show for blood cancer research at Sloan. The sold-out one-night-only event raised $2.3 million. Kroll was your host. He's the co-founder and host of Comedy vs. Cancer, and said, laughter as a way of cutting through the heavy stuff and is a great unifier. Raising money to fund research for rare blood cancers can still be joyful, and we dedicate each year of Comedy vs. Cancer to doing just that, creating a night of laughter to rally around a cause that affects so many. What's interesting to me is I didn't see a thing about this prior to it, and yet it sold out, and yet it raised a ton of money. I'm just curious, like, how did anyone know about this? Or is there just a benefactor list that they're like, hey, want to go to a concert, donate some money? Sure. But I didn't see anything about that in advance. But anyway, nice job by them. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, please tell a friend about it. They might like it too. If you would like the program without commercial interruption, there's a link in the show notes where you can go to calaroga.com/plus. $5 a month, no commercials. And that's not just this show. It's a bunch on the network, including 5 Good News Stories, which I host. Another way to support the show is go to buymeacoffee.com/daily comedy news. And I'll go to the National Donuts chain. I'll get a large iced coffee with pistachio, and I will thank you on the show by name. Buymeacoffee.com/daily comedy news. If you're discovering this on YouTube, it's primarily an audio podcast, but, changing times, had to give in, make a video version, but ring the bell and follow and all that YouTube stuff that you kids do. I'm an old guy in the basement. I don't know what to do. So I'll see you tomorrow.